We just digest the May-June paper. May-June paper. While we are waiting for the other guys to join, you can have a bathroom break as well, 1-2 minutes, while the others are joining. So for the meantime, also digest these questions, explain in detail why money is useful and how it facilitates exchange, etc. So we are just having a short break again, 2-3 minutes, while the others are joining. We can proceed. We can proceed. We can proceed. The question is saying, explain in detail why money is useful and how it facilitates exchange. How money is useful and explain how it facilitates exchange. Anyone to contribute? Just quickly checking something. Okay, anyone to contribute 1.1? Explain in detail why money is useful and how it facilitates exchange. Why is it useful? Okay, so in other words, we can simply say money is useful because of the functions which it plays, isn't it? It is useful because of its function that we realized that because of money, we are now able to transact. Because of money, we can now store value in money. Because of money, we can now measure everything in monetary terms. So in other words, the question requires you to explain the functions of money or the roles of money. And we know that there are three main roles of money, and that is why money is useful because of those functions. So the question requires you just to explain those three functions of money that we explained initially. And then maybe the other question was to say, how does it facilitate exchange? How does it facilitate exchange? Someone to answer? Explain detail how money is useful and how it facilitates exchange. Anyone to answer the question?
Could I say possibly because it acts as a medium of exchange?
Exactly.
This means that it can be used for making payments and thus ensuring that you receive goods and services in return.
I do agree with you. The bottom line that was required from this question, since it's 2 marks, you were supposed 6 marks, you were supposed just to explain those three functions of money, and maybe to re-emphasize the medium of exchange, just to explain the facilitation of exchange. Then you were done. 1.2. 1.2. Why did the monetary authorities in South Africa decide to adopt inflation targeting? So, as I said, that these questions, they are very intertwined year after year. You cannot separate the years, but they just twist the question, isn't it? But we did the question regarding the monetary targeting to say why the previous year's question, the 2019 one, was like more general to say why does the monetary authorities decides to adopt the inflation targeting. Now we are being specific to say why did the South African Reserve Bank decide to adopt inflation targeting. The answer is quite simple. To say what was realized is that the money supply was not exogenously determined by the central bank, but rather the money supply was endogenous, meaning also that the other private players played a very critical role in terms of deciding money supply within the economy. And that money supply affects price levels. Hence, the central bank didn't have control the price levels, yet it is their primary objective to maintain price stability. That is why they decided to have inflation targeting. So some of the questions, they repeat and repeat and repeat it. List and explain the three costs of inflation. List and explain the cost of inflation. And on the previous paper, we explained what really is inflation, and now we need to explain the cost or the negative effects of inflation. the negative effects of inflation. What are the effects of inflation from your side? From your side, what are the effects of inflation? If we have high inflation, what does it mean? Number one, inflation erodes the purchasing power of money, isn't it? And what are the implications of erosion of purchasing power of money? List and explain the three costs of inflation. So I said it erodes the purchasing power of money, which means that the incomes of people will be what? Someone to explain the erosion of money, the erosion of the purchasing power of money. What does that imply to us generally? What does that imply? Are you still there, guys?
Yes, we hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What we are simply saying is that if there is erosion of the purchasing power, it means our incomes are no longer enough to purchase what we were used to purchase, isn't it? Hence, our living standards will go down. If a loaf of bread was 15 rand and I used to have 2 loaves, given my income is still constant, it means I cannot now afford to buy the same 2 loaves of bread because of inflation. That is why most countries with high levels of inflation, people are struggling. You can give examples of the likes of Venezuela, the likes of Zimbabwe, long back we had Germany. High levels of inflation is associated with poor living standards because of the fact that the incomes of people will not be enough. What else? What are the effects? What are the negative effects of inflation? What are the negative effects of inflation? Yes. Negative effect of inflation. The other negative effect of inflation is that lenders will end up losing, isn't it? If I lend you my 100 rand today with the current level of inflation, then if inflation increases in the next 3 4 months, you, the borrower, you pay me 100 rand. But mean I've lost because I was supposed maybe to buy the commodities which are worth 100 rand today. But in the near future, because of inflation, I can't even afford to buy that. Right? So lenders end up losing when there is inflation. What else? Another cause of inflation, another negative impact of inflation is that inflation causes inflation. We begin to expect that maybe prices are going to go up, isn't it? So that expectation in terms of expecting that inflation can go up actually causes further increase in inflation, which implies that further erosion of the purchasing power of money will be realized in the future. So that also discourages investment in the domestic economy. Because remember that investors, they need a very clear, stable environment for them to operate. That at the end of the day, we have less investors in our economy. So we can have more and more and more and more effects of inflation, but those were the three that we decided to explain. Question 1.4, explain the quantity theory of inflation. What will happen to inflation if explain the quantity theory of inflation. What will happen to inflation if the growth rate of money supply exceeds the growth rate of aggregate demand, aggregate output? Illustrate with an example. Anyone to explain? Explain the quantity theory of inflation. There is the quantity theory of inflation. What will happen to inflation if the growth rate of money supply exceeds the growth rate of aggregate demand? Anyone to explain? What is the quantity theory of money? Yes? Yeah, you muted yourself. You unmuted yourself. What's your take? I think it's Daisy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. I would say the quantity theory of inflation indicates that the inflation rate equals the growth rate of money supply minus the growth rate of aggregate output.
So what does that mean in terms of our question to say what will happen to inflation if the growth rate of money supply exceeds the growth rate of aggregate output?
So obviously first there will be a definition. You need to guide me here as to, because I'm just reading my solutions from my exam, Frank. So I gave that definition. And I also mentioned that with the inflation rate, it's equal to the percentage change in money supply less percentage change in income.
Okay. There's this quantity theory of money equation, the Fisher's equation.
Okay.
Let me just highlight it. Otherwise, the explanation that we need just to add on what you've just said emanates from that Fisher's equation. So we have the Fisher's quantity theory of money equation, which I'm just going to highlight, which is MV. M representing money supply, V representing velocity of circulation. This should be equal to price levels within the economy, which is equals to multiplied by transactions within the economy. All right. This is referred as the Fisher's equations of money. Right. So if we hold constant, so we're simply saying the money supply in the velocity of circulation within the economy, they should be equal to price levels and transaction taking place within the economy, right? So our MV here represents our national output, right? So when we are explaining now, we are saying if we hold constant velocity, and if we hold constant transactional purposes, we hold constant transactional levels, it means that an increase which is going to happen in money supply here, increase in money supply is directly proportional to increase in price levels within the economy, right? So our answer now, to answer the question that reads, what will happen to inflation if the growth rate of money supply exceeds the growth rate of aggregate output? We are simply saying now, if money supply increases, holding constant velocity and transaction, inflation is expected to increase, right? So if money supply exceeds the growth rate in output, inflation is expected to increase because of the direct link between money supply and inflation. Holding other things constant, holding velocity of circulation constant and transactional constant, increase in money supply is directly linked to increase in price levels. that is to say we are going to experience a rise in inflation. All right, there was nothing much to say, but you were supposed to say what Daisy said, and then on top of that, you were supposed to illustrate by the Fisher's quantity of money. Then you hold constant your V and you hold constant your T. Then you say increase in money supply. If the other things are constant, then it implies that you are going to have higher levels of prices. That is an increase in inflation. All right. The other question is 15 marks. Is this the May-June paper?
Yes.
One which was written last semester. So let's proceed to question 2. Okay, given the impact of COVID-19 within the past few months and the recent downgrading of the South African sovereign credit rating, the monetary policy of the South African Reserve Bank decreased the repo rate more than 2 times. Explain the pros and cons of this move, including the time lag of monetary policy and considering how should monetary policy be conducted in recessions. Right, here's the question. So in order for you to answer this question in a better way, just divide the question, isn't it? It's in so many parts. So the question is saying, explain the pros and cons of this move. So the first thing for you here was supposed to say, what is a repo rate? To explain the definition of a repo rate. You say a repo rate is a monetary instrument tool which is used by the Reserve Bank in the monetary policy formulation and implementation. And it is the rate at which the central bank extends financial support to other lending institutions. So the first thing was for you to define what really is a repo rate, right? And then the move, which was done by the SARB, right? Then you say that the SARB decreased the repo rate more than 2 times, which is a part and parcel of the expansionary monetary policy. That is what we know, that decrease in repo rate is an example of an expansionary monetary policy. After you are done with that, you then go to the part which says pros and cons of this move. So we are simply saying you can start by just putting your subheading, just saying the pros of a decrease in the repo rate. Or in other words, what are the advantages which are associated with a decrease in the repo rate? What are they? So we've divided our question in so many parts. And if you do so, your question will be actually very easy. What are the advantages of decreasing the repo rate? What are the advantages of decreasing the repo rate? We have realized that the decrease in the repo rate actually led to decrease even in the payment of bonds, isn't it? Because most of the banks reduced the interest rates, right? So the mortgages were reduced in terms of the interest. The market interest rate also went down. So the advantages that can be realized is that in the long run, we are going to have maybe a little bit of increase in terms of investment levels. And we are aware that the COVID-19 has also led to a sort of rise in unemployment. And that increase in investment as a result of decrease in the repo rate can actually help in terms of reviving the issues to do with unemployment. So that is one of the advantages which we can cite to say we can have increase in investment, which can lead to increase in employment and hence living standard can better up as compared to the current environment that we are into. What are the advantage, or what can we say about the disadvantage? Because we said we need to also look at the disadvantages of this move. What are the disadvantages of reducing the repo rate? What are the disadvantages of decreasing the repo rate?
It will be less foreign investment due to lower interest rate.
Explain.
Due to lower interest rate, it is less attractive for foreign investment to invest with us. So
invest in our financial sector, because we said the higher the interest rate, the more the capital inflow, isn't it? Now we have reduced the interest rate, which implies that we are going to have roughly capital outflow, less people investing in our financial sector, in our financial securities. Yeah, so it's 100% correct to say we are going to have sort of capital outflow. People looking for countries with a better interest rate as compared to ours. So that is one of the disadvantages that we can cite. Then the question says, explain the pros and cons of this move, including the time lag of monetary policy, and considering how should monetary policy be conducted in recessions. What should we do in terms of the time lag, including the time lag? Okay, we have different types of lags, isn't it? We have those, what we call the recognition lag, and however, that lag is not going to be there because already the central bank have recognized that we have a problem of COVID-19 problems, which will cause higher unemployment. So that recognition lag is not yet there. So what we need to explain is referred as the impact lag. How long is it going to take for us to realize the impact lag? So what we can say in terms of the lag, you can just say the impact lag of the move by the central bank is not yet realized, isn't it? Because currently we're still in this pandemic and we still have firms that are still retrenching, right? So maybe in terms of the impact lag, it is going to take a very long period of time before the move is realized within the economy. The other thing that we should also explain is how should the monetary policy conducted, and considering how should the monetary policy be conducted in recessions. What should we say? What I can say is that the move which was done by the SAB is in line with what was supposed to be done, because already the economy was said to be in the recession, and already the economy, if it is in the recession, the authorities should implement expansionary measures, just like what the SAB has done. So you should just support what was done by the SAB to say when we are in the recession, the authorities in terms of the stabilization policies should implement those stabilization policies in a form of an expansionary, so as to improve economic activities. So this question, I think it was there for us this was just basically the basics of your monetary policies, and your repo rate. You know what's a repo rate. You should know the advantage and disadvantage of reducing the repo rate. Know the issues to do with the impact lag. Did we realize the results? Not yet. Maybe it will take a longer period of time before we realize it. And then what should monetary policy be conducted in recessions? We know that if we're in recessions, being it monetary policy or fiscal policy, authorities should just implement expansionary measures to improve the economic activities, then you'll be done. So understand your question, answer each and every part of the question, then you collect all the information. Because what will normally happen is that most of the students, they will end up just explaining the pros and cons of the repo rate without explaining also the time lag and also explaining what should be done by the sub when we are in recession. So try by all means to answer each and every part of the question so that you collect maximum marks. List and explain the two types of the credits that facilitate exchange but do not immediately lead to an increase in cash or money stock. Is this the right question that I'm doing? Okay.
Yes, it is.
List and explain. List and explain the two types of credit that facilitate exchange but do not immediately lead to increase in cash or stock.
I'd say credit cards.
Two types of credit that facilitate exchange but do not immediately lead to increase in cash or money stock. Exactly. Cash. Explain them.
Credit cards
What? Credit card.
and trade credits.
It's 100% correct. I remember very well when this exam was written, students also struggled to mention those two types. So it was just a matter of just knowing them. And okay, explain the first one.
I said credit cards held by customers. These can be issued by retail banks such as Standard Bank or Capitec. Credit cards normally provide credit up to a certain limit, which is subject to affordability and risk profile. The credit only has to be settled at a later date after it is spent. The credit card acts as a medium of exchange but does not lead to an immediate increase in cash or deposit, and hence the money stock is not impacted by an increase due to issuing the credit card with a limit to the consumer. The credit has to be used first and spent. A card can have a zero limit utilization and therefore not affecting money supply. A credit card does not lead to an increase in currency or deposits. That was my explanation.
Okay, the other one is what, that one I don't have anything to add. It's actually very clear. So the first thing was for you to at least know the types of credit that facilitate the exchange but do not immediately lead to cash or money stock, isn't it? The other one is what? Trade what?
Trade credit.
How does it work?
It's issued by firms to
firms to what is trade credit?
Trade credit.
Trade.
Trade.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I said it's issued by firms to other firms to sell their products in the trade sector on condition that payment is made up at a future date. For example, a chicken supplier to Pick n Pay or Woolworths, the shop will only pay the supplier in 60 or 90 days as an example. The trade credit issued acts as a medium of exchange but does not lead to an immediate increase in cash or deposit, and hence the money stock is not impacted.
So money stock does not change because of the future payments that are going to be made at a future date, isn't it? But later on, that is when the money stock or the cash in circulation will change. So those were the two factors or 2 points that we are supposed to explain. Mention and explain the two types of monetary mandates. What are they? The other guys, are they still there? Are you going to make it up until 6, guys? Where's she? She was saying, where's she? I can't hear you anymore. Okay, anyone who's not daisy to mention and explain the two types of monetary mandates, monetary policy mandates. Yes, what are those monetary mandates? Okay, the two policies regarding the monetary policy we have is either be hierarchical or the dual mandate. Hierarchical or dual mandate. Those are the two types. And how does the hierarchical mandate works? So the main objective of the hierarchical mandate is to say that the primary goal of the central bank is price stability. Under this mandate, they believe that once price stability is there, every economic activities will also follow after that. The understanding is that when prices are stable, the economy will be also stable. When the currency is stable, it also lures foreign investors within the country because business planning will be very easier. That is their belief. What about the dual mandate? Anyone to explain the dual mandate? Guys, do you think we can get the 6? Okay,
Yes.
the dual mandate. Okay, the dual mandate, we are not simply saying now the primary objective of the central bank is price stability, but we are now saying we should have two existed objective of increasing employment and also try by all means to keep inflation as low as possible, because of the reason that if we just mention or if we just keep prices as low as possible, we end up overemphasizing the price stability objective at the expense of other objectives at macro level of increasing employment, increasing economic growth. So let's have the dual mandate of saying, okay, in the long run, we are interested to have prices being stable and we also have more employment. So I've just summarized the two to say the first one, hierarchical, the central bank will try by all means to have the primary objective of price stability being met, then done. The other objective they will follow because of that. Then the dual mandate, we are saying we now have the two coexistent objectives that should be met, the price stability and also increasing the employment levels in the long run. The other explanations they follow after that. And then the question 3.3, answer the following questions by circling the correct option. Each answer is 1 mark. Which of the following is correct regarding the effect of contractionary monetary policy on price level using the exchange rate transmission mechanism? So number 1, using the exchange rate, what will happen to the repo rate?
It will increase.
It will increase. That is perfect, isn't it? Contractionary monetary policy, it is either increase in the repo rate or decrease in money supply. So repo rate will increase. So you're supposed to circle increase here. Question number 2, all interest rates will
Increase.
increase as well. Right? Bank deposits
Will decrease.
Why?
What was my reasoning here? I said bank deposits will decrease. Let me just look at my.
What happens regarding the bank deposits?
Can't even skip, but I just said on my paper decrease. Don't know why. Please clarify.
Okay, the other guys. There's Mainline, there's Toliswa, there's Sloki. Oh, guys, we are now quiet. We are even scared, me and Daisy, yes, that you guys were just decided to be quiet. What happens to bank deposits if there is contractional monetary policy? What's the reason? Should we say increase? Should we say increase because interest rate is increased, higher returns, or should we say decrease because people now have less income to deposit? What's the logic? What's the reason?
Is it decrease because people won't be, won't have deposits?
Will decrease because
people won't have bank deposits.
I'm lost in a melee.
Because people will have less money.
Okay, there are two reasons here to put, which enables you to put the decrease or increase. In terms, if you say bank deposits will increase, maybe you are coming from the point that you are saying interest rate has gone up. Therefore, if interest rate has gone up, I would rather deposit my money to fetch higher returns. Or if you say decrease, you are simply saying that because of contractional monetary policy, which will impact other variables within the economy, at the end of the day, people have less money to deposit. But here, what I'll take an increase because we are not looking at the long run or medium run. We are just looking at that point, a particular period of time, to say we're going to have an increase in the bank deposits because of the increase in interest rate. People will be looking for higher returns. Okay, subject for research though, just go and research on your spare time. What happens to the inflow of capital into the country? It will increase, isn't it?
Increase.
Increase. High interest rates because of contractional monetary policy makes our currency to be demanded. People be investing in our own currency, in our own country, searching for higher returns. What about this is because the stocks and securities. Question 5.
Will decrease. Decrease?
Prices of domestic stocks.
Will decrease.
Why? Why?
Because the repo rate is no. Wait, Frank.
Anyone? The stocks. So basically, we need to know the relationship between the stocks and the interest rate in short. What are the relationship? What happens to stock prices? If there's contractionary monetary policy. Early in the morning, guys, we were participating. Now we decided to be quiet. Okay. And the other one is the cause is the rand too. What happens to the rand? Just keep that one. Which means that we need to understand the relationship between stocks and interest rate. The rand we what? We appreciate it. Increase in interest rate increases the demand for rand and causes the rand to gain more value. That's appreciation. Foreign goods are relatively imports will be very cheaper,
less expensive.
less expensive, but our exports will be expensive, but our imports, which is foreign goods, will be less expensive. Thus, net exports, we what? Net exports, our X minus M, net exports will decrease. We have balance of payment that will worsen. Net exports, we are basically looking at the gap between exports and imports. Since now our imports are expensive, our exports are very expensive, means we're exporting less than what we are importing. Therefore, our trade balance will worsen. That is a decrease. So it will decrease. Equity prices. What happens to equity prices? Equity prices, they will decrease or increase, and why? Yes, guys, equity prices. The aggregate output, our aggregate output
will decrease.
Will decrease because of direct relationship between imports that will increase. Imports is a negative, therefore if it increases, output will increase. Bank loan will
decrease.
What happens to bank loan?
They'll
They will
decrease.
decrease, isn't it? Because interest rates are high. Cost of imported goods
Will decrease.
Cost of imported goods will decrease since our currency is now higher value. Price level generally within the economy
Will decrease.
Price levels we what?
Will decrease. Outside will decrease.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Remember that relationship that we portrayed generally that exists between money supply and prices.
The price levels.
And if money supply increases, price level increases. If money supply decreases, prices will also decreases. So prices will decrease. Okay. So we omitted question number 1 that I need you guys to look. Then when we do our next lesson, we'll look at it. Equity prices. And what else did we omit it? Number 5 and 9. We omitted those two. So we are going to have our next session on what time do we do during the week? Wednesday, 7 p.m. in the evening. Wednesday, 7 p.m. You can note down 7 p.m. on Wednesday. I'll post the link, or we can use the same link. Let's just use the same link on Wednesday, 7 p.m. in the evening. So on Wednesday, we are going to look at I'll post the papers in the group, in the groups. So let me just add the days in the group so that we don't. Okay, so let's have our next session on Wednesday, whereby we can also try to look at some past exam papers. So on your own, go through again these two papers that we did today, and then on Wednesday, we'll try to have another paper that we are going to do. And then I think next weekend, we are also going to have another session on Sunday. Right. So for today, we can call it a day, and I wish you the best in your studies. For those who have specific questions, you can inbox or you can post in the group so that we can help each other to tackle them. Or during the week, if you can have difficult questions, you can just take a pic or you can just screenshot and then share with others in the group. So for today, I think we can end here.
Thank you.
Okay, sure, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, guys.